Karen, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing
Awesome.
today?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here. This is super exciting for many, many reasons.
I know. So I'm just going to give you guys a little glimpse into who Karen is, and then she's going to take the spot here, or the spotlight, and introduce herself. But basically, Karen and I go back. Like, I was once Karen's coach in the bodybuilding mecca world, and she was a figure competitor, both open class and masters class. And yeah, she came to me as a referral, and her bestie was competing as well. It was great. I had a whole bunch of girls. I still remember those times. It was so much
There was quite a
fun.
group of us. I want to say there was like, at least half a dozen, maybe even 8 or 10 of us that we
Yeah.
all got together and did the same shows and we hung out. It was great. Yeah.
It was great. Isn't that great? Like, when you talk about community and stuff like that, because you and I both come from CrossFit as well. It's different to see those different communities, and I really enjoyed it. I would never, like, I learned so much from coaching, not only you, but the entire group of girls. But I think at the end of the day, it was one of those experiences in life that I'm so privileged to have, had
Mhm.
and taken part in. So we've done that. So you've gone through my coaching, and back then it was obviously different
Yeah.
because it was all like meal plans and contest prep. And fast forward to where we are now, it's, I know who you are as a coach, and that's why I want you to be able to introduce yourself. But I know you've gone through your own nutritional, I guess, journeys. I don't know, all these kind of like learned lessons and these life things and stuff like that. So, like, let's talk a little bit more about that. So, if you want to dive into your journey, or whatever it looks like, I don't really care. This is why we're on this. We're having a conversation. This is real shit, and I just really want to, I want the group, the audience, get to know you.
Sure. Sounds good. Okay. So like going back, to my childhood, I was really active. I was involved primarily in gymnastics. I did some volleyball through high school, some dance. I kind of dabbled. I think I did a season of soccer, but I didn't like getting hit in the face with a soccer ball, so I jumped out of that pretty quick. And I did a few seasons of like community softball too, but primarily it was gymnastics, volleyball, that kind of a thing. I went to the University of Alberta, got my Bachelor of Elementary Education with a specialization in early childhood in the mid 90s. So I'm aging myself here.
You and I both, don't worry about it.
And when I graduated, it was kind of like now, teaching jobs were really hard to find. So I worked as a substitute teacher for a while, but then I had my first kid. And so that took me off on maternity leave and that kind of thing. A couple of years later, I had a set of twins. So my kids are all adults now. I have a daughter who's going to be 26. She's 25 right now. She'll be 26 this spring. And then I have a set of boy-girl twins who are 23. After, I'm sure I had a little bit of postpartum depression after my first, but I definitely had like hard, deep postpartum depression after my twins. And as sort of part of that, hand in hand went with a lot of, I would say for me, it was a lot of weight gain, like 35 pounds, I think I gained. Um, I'd say mostly due to binge eating. I don't feel like I really went through a binge restrict cycle. I think I binged, but I didn't really restrict in between my binges, right? And it was very emotional based. Like at the time, my husband at the time was traveling a lot, and he'd be gone, 3 to 5 weeks at a time, and I'd be like, get the kids to bed, and I'd be okay. I'm going to sit down on the couch with this Ben and Jerry's. I'm just going to eat this whole thing because it'll make me feel better. That
Right.
that kind of. I was stressed. I was sad. I was lonely. I was anxious. I was frustrated. All of those emotions. I dug into food for.
Can I just ask you this question? Were you ever diagnosed actually with postpartum at all, though?
Yes, I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with it on some fairly decent doses of medication. It took me quite a while. I had some resistance about going on to medication, like many people do. And it took me quite a while to find the medication that worked for me. But eventually I sort of let go of the stigma around it, and I gave it a chance, and it allowed my brain to sort of open up to the possibilities of how to recover from this, right? I think had I not gone on the medication, I just would have had this big block of,
Right.
that a giant speed bump that I could never have gotten over. So fast forward several years, I would try and like my activity level like went to basically nothing when I had young kids. I did it once my kids were a little bit older, try and get them out, bundled them all up and get them out to the Y into childcare. And I do like a step aerobics class or whatever, right? But it was really hit and miss, really inconsistent. And then I guess it must be about 8 years ago now or so, my bestie Carolyn came to me and said, I'm going through a midlife crisis. She's like a couple years older than me. She's like, I'm going through a midlife crisis. I'm wondering if you want to come along. And I'm like, all right, what does this entail? Like tattoos, trip across the country, like, what are we doing here, right? And she says to me, I want to do a bodybuilding show. And I'm like, super cool. It's something that I have been interested in since I was in high school. Like I took, one of my options in high school was fine arts. And I did a lot of pencil drawings. I'd go out and buy like the bodybuilding magazine, and I'd take the pictures in the bodybuilding magazine, and I would do pencil drawings of all of these like bodybuilders.
No
And
way.
I can't believe this is one of those things that I'm like, really, mom and dad, you let me do this? I did a pencil drawing, this big pencil drawing of a bodybuilder, and it said, a hard man is good to find. And I put it up on my bedroom wall.
Oh my God.
In high school.
That's hilarious.
So like the aesthetic of body composition has always been an interest of mine, right? So when Carolyn asked me to do this, I was like, let's jump in, right? So yeah, she did her first show before I did mine. I think she ended up doing about like 4 or 5 shows. I did 3, including the nationals that we stepped on stage at the same competition together. And you were my coach for 2 of those last 2 shows. And it was definitely, looking back, I'm really glad I did it. I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad I did it. It has definitely been part of my evolution of nutrition and sort of a makeover of my own nutrition and lifestyle, but also part of the evolution of getting into nutrition coaching and supporting others, right? So it's a really important part of my story, and I wouldn't change that I went through it. For me, I needed that extreme to go from, like, I was binging before, I needed to go to this other extreme of big restriction in order to come back to the happy medium where I'm at right now, right? So it was a really important part of where I'm at today, where I've come to today.
I think some of the best coaches, if you don't mind me saying, Karen, I think some of the best coaches out there, it's the experiences we've gone through that makes us so valuable in the industry. Because while I don't like to see just, oh, I've been on stage and now I'm going to coach people. I do appreciate the fact that, when you look back and see this, like the struggles, like it makes me actually quite sad when I think about what I put my body through that competition era, because I did, back-to-back shows for 4 years straight. It makes me sad, but had I not gone through that, I don't think I'd be the coach I am today either.
Yeah, exactly. And even the things like the postpartum depression and being a mom to young
100%.
kids, and the binging, and recognizing that I am an emotional eater, right? Like if I let it get the better of me, I'm an emotional eater, and I know that about myself. And so those are all things that I can, as I'm working with clients, when they say to me, oh, I'm just exhausted, it's been such a busy week with my kids, I can be like, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? So I can really relate to where they're coming from, and even supporting them through. There's a lot of people, especially over the last couple of years, who have some pretty serious anxiety and depression, and to support them through that, and not only give them tools that I can give them, but to help reduce the stigma around it, and say to them, like, it would probably be very valuable for you to get some therapy, right? And don't feel bad about that. It'll only give you another tool in your toolkit. So all of these experiences that we've gone through, like you say, they make us the coaches that we are today, for sure.
Yeah. So you went from bodybuilding to, you did the same swing I did,
Yeah.
Only, do you know, I don't know, I can't remember how it all lined up for you, but I remember Brooke going into it first. I was the trainer on the floor who was just like, CrossFit, what the fuck is this shit? Like,
Yeah.
it's so bad for you. And it's not, but you know what I mean? Like, that was my mindset behind it. So I know I went into CrossFit probably the latter part of 2015. When did you dip into that community?
I started at the beginning of 2015, and I did a little bit of, after my shows, I did some like, community gym, powerlifting stuff there. And at the time, my son was going to a rock climbing gym on the west end of Edmonton. And the owner of the climbing gym, they also had the other half of the gym was a CrossFit gym. And every time I walked in the door to drop my son off, he'd be like, Karen, you got to try this CrossFit thing. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then another girlfriend of mine was going to a different CrossFit gym, and she asked me to come for like a trial class with her. And I went to the first class and I was like, okay, this is the
Right?
thing that I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I started out with the climbing slash CrossFit gym on the West End. I started out there at the beginning of 2015, like January 2015, did my first open starting at the end of February and like into March of 2015. And then a couple years later, a couple of the coaches from that gym opened their own CrossFit gym and asked me to come along to be a coach with them. Definitely getting into CrossFit was life-changing for me. I enjoyed and continue to enjoy the variety around that style of training. It keeps me interested. There's lots of really great people you can get programming off of. And so I don't have to, before it was like, go to my community gym and Monday was leg day and Tuesday was back day and Wednesday was shoulder day. And, and it got really repetitive and boring for me. And I also was not doing the things that I needed, that I didn't enjoy, like running. Right.
Right. Well, and I think too, like, if I could share a little bit too, like for me, it's weird. It's like we were like living each other's lives. I did the same thing. Like I did a little bit of like my own powerlifting blocks right after competing. Well, not right after, but for a bit. I hurt my back and then I thought I could like heal myself. But I knew I was done bodybuilding. Like I really just didn't want to be in the gym anymore. Like I know there's competitors, and this is you and I we'll come back on here in our coach's corner and we'll talk about the aftermath of bodybuilding and stuff like that, what we go through. But I know I was definitely tired of it. But when I went into CrossFit, I felt like there was just a sense of community that I've never felt before, because it is way different. There's community in bodybuilding, but the community in CrossFit was way different. And I needed that. I know that because I had been bodybuilding for so many years that I felt like that it really is blinders on, balls to the wall, get shit done for yourself first, and be in a community of like, oh, I can share how the diet's going and all the training you got to do. But community with CrossFit's way different, right? It's like that cheering on, that whole like that. It's a love affair, really, when I think about it. So I know for me, it was the perfect timing too. And what I like about it now, because I haven't been into the box for it, the pandemic changed things, but I realized what I was missing too from the bodybuilding world, right? Like my staples, my strength, just wanting to be strong. I love the lifting in CrossFit, but I also was starting to realize, and this is not the case for everyone, that some of the shit that was happening with my own body in terms of like stress and not injury, but just limitations, range of motions and stuff like that, were starting to rear up a little bit more with the amount of volume training that I was doing. And I didn't do a ton. I would never call myself anywhere near. I was a recreational CrossFitter. That's it, like barely. But I could do high volume butterflies and, lots of like thrusters and stuff like that, even though I fucking hated them. But I had endurance. Like I could do the burpees. I had that.
Yeah.
But the pandemic really showed what I was missing. And that was kind of like that just structure and being strong. So I have been able to apply a lot of the, functional stuff of CrossFit into my current hypertrophy training. I like to do different things now, right? Whereas CrossFit, I would have never, like, I would have been scared to hell. Like, oh my God, what's a clean? Or I see, like, and I think the snatch is the most technical thing out there and the most beautiful lift ever. And I've got a crush on a couple girls at my former box that can just lift like no other. And one of them happens to be a client of mine. But to do that now, if I had done that or tried to do that without the fundamentals of the classes, I probably would have hurt myself, right? So I just love that aspect. So I feel like I was very lucky to go through that. And as a trainer who had that negative mindset around CrossFit, I'm here to say, like, it's all in what you do.
Yeah.
It really is. You got to find shit that you love. So that's what I got from just like those transitions, because I still love the idea of building my body, but I don't have to be a bodybuilder to do that. I
Yes.
love the functional training of CrossFit, but I don't need to be a CrossFitter to do that. So
Yeah.
again,
I actually realized that I've put on more muscle doing CrossFit than I did in those few years when I was just focusing on bodybuilding hypertrophy stuff, right? And yes, the community is like no other. This particular gym that I ended up being a co-owner of it too after some time. And we actually de-affiliated from CrossFit a few years ago. We felt like what we were doing within our four walls wasn't true CrossFit. I mean, we did CrossFit style workouts, but we also focused a lot on mobility and, injury prevention and strengthening small muscle groups and stabilizer muscles and more of a longevity focus.
Yeah.
So I was really lucky to be a part of that. And I switched from, like, at the beginning, I was quite a competitor. I went into all sorts of different competitions. And the thing that changed for me during the pandemic, at least at the beginning, was I went from focusing on CrossFit style stuff as from a competitor's mindset to I need to move my body and I need to be able to stay healthy and have some muscle mass that will sustain me as I age, right?
Yep.
I stopped recording all my times and all my benchmarks and all my lifts, and it doesn't matter to me. Some days are better than the others, and that's okay. I'm starting to get some arthritis that's getting in the way of some of my stuff, but okay, no big deal. I'll modify around it, right? Whereas that kind of stuff would have stressed me out before.
Yeah.
The other thing about the community was over the past few years, I've gone through a few things in my life that that space, the people in that space I felt heard and loved and respected and supported in that space like I felt nowhere else in my life. Like it was a super important piece of transitions that I've gone through in my life over the last few years. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. And the only reason I'm not at that space anymore is because we had to close because of COVID. Otherwise, I would still be there every day, right? The only day I didn't go was Sundays, unless we had to bring a friend day on a Sunday. But other than that, I was at that gym every single day. People in there were amazing.
And I think that really good take home here though, Karen, and we'll dive into what, you as a coach, but, I just wanted to touch on this so people understand this. Like, when you hear what Karen's saying, like that's passion, right? Like it's finding something you truly do love. And that is why it's so easy for her to stick to it, regardless if she's in that gym or not.
Yeah.
Cause I know you train at another gym, and it's the same thing with me. Like, people often ask, like, how is it that you just show up for your workouts? Like, are you ever not motivated, quote unquote, right? And I'm just like, it's a feeling that comes and goes, but it's bridging that gap. I know I'm capable of doing it. I also love what I'm doing. And it doesn't have to be benchmark, this and PRs here and all this. It can just be, right? You just show up because you love it, not because you're told you have to hit a certain number or you have to be there to lose body fat or whatever that is. So I love what you were saying there, because it just made me think about that. Like, these are the keys, and this is the stuff that you can apply in your nutrition and lifestyle, no matter how you look at it, right?
Yeah. So, and the focus of, like, again, I used to be like, this is the way it has to be at the gym. I have to have to hit this PR. I have to PR this benchmark workout or whatever. And now there are days I have like a little mini whiteboard, and I write up my workout on my little mini whiteboard the night before I go to the gym. And I pack up all my, my water bottle, and I lay out the clothes that I'm going to take the night before. I have this like whole routine. I have my workouts scheduled in my calendar, and if I have to have something else happen at the same time, I move it to a different spot in my calendar. But there are days that I get to the gym and I look at my whiteboard and I'm like, no, I'm not feeling this workout today. And I erase it and I go back to like the programming that I follow has a few different kind of tracks on it. And I'll pick a track that's a little less intense for the day if I'm not feeling it. But I don't just like totally bail, right? I'll find something else to do, or I'll reduce the amount of time I'm there. Like I typically train for at least an hour. Sometimes it's up to an hour and a half, 5 days a week. I take Thursdays and Sundays off. But then there are days that I'll get in there and I'll be like, yeah, my energy isn't there. So I'm going to get something in. And sometimes it's 45 minutes and then I'm gone. Right. And that's okay. You don't have to be 100% every single day. Right.
Yeah. So you evolved from, because I know you have your CrossFit level 2.
Yeah.
So you've evolved and you're also a nutrition coach. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, I know for myself, like why I chose you and wanted you as part of the team, but let's dive into, I guess like who you typically coach now, what your expertise is, like what you enjoy coaching. And then from that standpoint, like even like around your style of coaching, because this is the difference between your cookie cutter coach that just shows up and says, hey, I coach nutrition versus what you and I do. So Let's talk. I think this is important.
So right around the time that I started CrossFit, I realized that the nutrition piece was also super important to me. So I did my precision nutrition level 1. And I remember talking to you, I contacted you not long after that to say, hey, should I do my level 2? And you're like, yeah, like level 2 precision nutrition is all like about life coaching. And I'm like, oh yeah. No, I don't want to get into life coaching. Like I'm good where I am. And then as time went on, I'm like, okay, this is actually a lot about life coaching.
Right?
So I did at that time, then I did courses through Nutritional Coaching Institute. I did their level 1, their level 2. I did a mindset course. I did a hormones course. And then I also did with you, I think it's like a year and a half ago now, or a year ago. I can't remember. We did the health mindset coaching certification, which was really huge. And then I did a functional nutrition and metabolism course with Sam Miller. Casey Joe's mindset course was fantastic. It really supported stuff that I kind of already in my gut knew, but it gave me more tools to use around that, right? And more of the science background around it, so that when I'm communicating that stuff with my clients, it doesn't come across as stuff I'm pulling out of thin air or like
woo-woo shit.
Right? The woo-woo shit. Yeah, exactly. So those are the kinds of courses that I've done over time. When I was at Movement Lab, a majority of my clients came from the lab, and a majority of them were looking for performance. They had performance-based goals. I would say a majority of them were also males. I've worked with a lot of females. I've worked with females who are looking for fat loss and they don't have really performance goals. I've worked with people who have just are looking for, to be healthy in their lifestyle or change some biofeedback markers like, blood pressure and symptoms of gout and stuff like that. So I have a really wide range. I don't focus just solely on women. I'll work with men and women. It doesn't matter to me. And it's gone from being more of a focus on, I've evolved from being a focus on performance to focusing on things like fat loss, longevity, healthy lifestyle, mindset, that kind of thing. I think the other thing that I've evolved from was early on, I got really caught up in the just put in the frickin' work attitude. Like, here's your macros, follow your macros, no excuses, get frickin' after it, get shit done. Yeah, exactly. And now I've evolved. I mean, the whole part of the reason that I got into coaching was because I had this aha moment for myself where I realized, like, I'm an emotional eater. I realized why I was doing what I was doing. I dug a little deeper than just about the food, right? And so I was like, okay, this is like the trick. Like, people need to dig deeper. They need to dig beyond the food. And then I got caught up in this mindset of just get the work done, nose to the grindstone, blinders on, right?
Yeah.
But I've evolved back into the focusing on the mindset side of things and helping people dig a little deeper and ask the yeah, but questions or the why questions, right?
Right, because that's the work. Like we as coaches have to put the work in to understand the client more. But the thing is that if we don't put that work in, the client, they don't acknowledge or they don't see what's going on, right? Like that's why you hire a coach to help you take those blinders off, to like allow yourself to just be sometimes, that you don't have to get shit down all the time. Like you don't have to be doing everything. So I love that. That's why, it's one of the reasons why the podcast is called More Than Macros, because it really is, no matter how you look at your lifestyle, it's more than, hey, Coach Karen, can you give me a macro split because I'm trying to lose body fat? It's more than that, because you're going to be like, okay, but where are you right now? Where have you been? What's holding you back? What's your relationship with food, your body, like all of these things? Because guess what? It doesn't matter what that macro split is if you fucking have a shitty relationship with food. It doesn't matter what your macros are if you don't even understand what it is, right? Like people think there's just, I gotta follow this, right? It's like the meal plan. So I love that. So you've evolved from that. So,
I guess the other thing that I would jump in and say is that I don't typically give out meal plans. I don't love meal plans because I find that they are not sustainable. They aren't flexible enough. People get to like, I think they can be comforting to people in the sense that, okay, now I know what I'm supposed to eat and when I'm supposed to eat it. The thing is though, that life happens, right? You go on vacation, you go to somebody's birthday party, some friends invite you out for dinner, and then, oh, but that's not on my meal plan. Holy shit, what do I do? Right? That's not to say that I won't do meal plans. I know you and I were just talking recently about a client who might benefit from meal plans for a short period of time to sort of get her rolling, right? But it's not something that I typically do for a long period of time. That being said, I don't always start with macros either, right? Like there are some people that are suited to get started with macros right away, and other people that you have to sort of take some time and work on some other things before you build up to looking at macros. So I guess my message there is that if you come to work with me, you very likely will not get a meal plan, but it also doesn't mean that you have to do macros, at least not off the top. I do see a lot of value in macros because it helps people understand portions in our society. Portions are like completely skewed and people don't actually know how much of the things are, how much they're eating, right? Because you go out to restaurants and whatnot, portions are totally skewed. The sizes of our plates have grown over the years and all of that. So macros help sort of narrow things down and help people learn, oh, that's what 100 grams of chicken looks like, or that's what 80 grams of broccoli looks, or, whatever. Oh, and also not to say that you're only going to be eating chicken and broccoli.
Right. Well, I think what's important to recognize too is like, because again, like, you and I could talk about this forever, but like macros is just a tool, right? It's a measure of metrics. And while most people are like, they think that all we have to do is eat healthy. They think that just, I can eat all the avocados in the world and I can eat all the nuts and seeds. But what they don't understand is that even if your goal maybe when you talk to somebody isn't specific fat loss, eventually your brain goes there. Because let me tell you, I've had a ton of people that have come to me and said, I just want to be healthier. But the bottom line is they want fat loss, right? And so when they don't see those numbers moving, it's because the calories matter. And that's what macros help you understand, is that you cannot, you can't beat that. Like that is just a matter of science. And it just is the reality. And as much as the person that might come to you might say, well, I don't want to track calories and do all that, that's fine. But here's what the value is. And we don't have to start there. But I don't know about you, Karen, but 90% of the people that come to me that say, like they want to do all this stuff. And then of those people, they're like, well, I'm going to journal. It only takes about that week where they're like, so how do I, like, what's a macro again? And I think like, should I download my, my fitness pal? Like they they're kind of curious because they see that maybe journaling, like write shit out, number one, is still work. Number two, it's like, I'm more aware, but I still don't understand what are proteins again?
Right.
So like, that's the best thing about the whole macro thing is like, just, it helps you really start to identify, like Karen had mentioned, like, it's not just to help you dial in numbers and get, reach your body composition goals. It helps you learn more about the food you're actually eating.
For sure. And there are so many people, like one of the latest things is intuitive eating, right? And so people are like, I just want to eat intuitively. I don't want to have to follow macros. I don't want to have to count calories, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that, again, going back to the way our society is right now, it's really tough to eat intuitively right now because most people have no clue what actual reasonable portions are.
Yeah.
So macros helps you sort of, narrow that focus for a bit so that you can then get to a point of intuitive eating. For me, it's been within the last year that I've been really loosely tracking macros. So I probably went for, like 5 or 6 years of pretty tightly tracking macros. I wouldn't track macros when I went on vacation. There would be days where I'd like go out for dinner or brunch or whatever that I just like, it's a day, but I would pretty tightly track macros around that, especially when I was in CrossFit and looking for performance goals. I was pretty tight around my macros, but within the last year, I'm eating way more intuitively. My body composition is pretty much the same. My weight has stayed very stable. I'm still able to do stuff in the gym, not at the same performance level that I could before, but I'm still able to do the stuff in the gym that I want to do. I'm still able to carry on with other things and activities in life that I want to take part in. But it's taken me that long to be able to eat intuitively, quote unquote, right?
But let's go into this question of like, and this has also led you here because it's not like the macros that Karen started following were magic. She did the work. So when you look back out of all the things that you've gone through, what is your biggest take home or takeaways from your experiences? Like what's led you to where you are type of scenario, because I know like you mentioned postpartum, you mentioned binge eating, all that kind of stuff. Like where's that, how's that evolved?
So I would say that I have takeaways from a personal perspective, but I also have professional takeaways. Like the changes that I made in my nutrition and my exercise and my lifestyle and my mindset have all had major impacts on things like my anxiety, my depression, my thyroid symptoms. My thyroid has been way more stable. And if it goes out of whack, I know it right away, right? I become very more aware, self-aware of my body and the changes and so on. I'm 53 years old. I'm in perimenopause without a doubt, right? And I've been able to manage those symptoms much better. Looking back, I had I've had perimenopause probably since I was like 35, night sweats and that kind of a thing. But once I started digging into my nutrition and my exercise and my mindset and my lifestyle and so on, those symptoms have become way more manageable.
Right.
Again, looking back, I thought at one time I had irritable bowel. I actually think it was more due to related to anxiety and the stuff I was eating.
Oh, 100%. Like, I'm glad you brought that up because that was me. Like, do you remember being the person, because this is how I'm just going to say this, but after my competitions, because I ignored a lot of symptoms.
Yeah.
I just diagnosed myself with everything that was wrong with me, but it had so much to do with my stressors, my sleep, my actual nutrition. Right. And so like, I thought I had IBS. I thought I had like lactose intolerant, like so many things were wrong with me, but no.
Totally. And I have discovered I do feel better on a lower gluten diet. I don't go exclusively gluten-free, but I do sort of watch the amount of gluten I get. I do feel better the less gluten I have. I know I'm not celiac by any stretch, but I would say, a bit of a sensitivity. But again, that's been something that I've learned through like trial and error, right?
Yeah.
Even looking at my sleep is better, my stress levels are better. Things like my confidence and my self-worth are way better than they used to be, just because of the changes and the focus that I've had on nutrition and exercise and mindset and lifestyle and so on. So those are my personal takeaways. My professional takeaways, I remember when I first started, like I said before, I got into it because I realized there was like this dig deeper, dig past the food to sort of understand why you do what you do and why you eat what you eat and when you eat and all of that kind of stuff. And then I got sucked into this, like, do the freaking work, put on the blinders, here are your macros, follow this, be perfect. Don't, have any excuses, just hustle, all of that kind of stuff. Instead of listening to my gut, which was, it's not just about the food. It's not just about the macros. Be flexible, be open-minded. Yes, there are lots of different ways. So like I've had clients come to me and say, I want to do carb cycling. I want to do keto. I want to do paleo, right? And I'll be like, okay, like, let's talk about it, right? At the beginning, I was like, nope, nope, I'm not doing any of that shit, right?
Yeah.
And now I'll be like, okay, let's have a conversation about it. Like, why do you want to do this? What do you hope to achieve by doing this? This is what it's going to take. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with that short term? Are you okay with that long term? We can have some discussions about it. So the takeaways of being flexible, open-minded, getting back to not just being like blinders on, only macros, just focusing on foods, but focusing on mindset and building habits in order to create that long-term success would be my professional takeaway.
And those are huge because these are all things that are applicable to almost every individual that comes to our coaching platform, right? And
Yeah.
so when you yourself have gone it, so I mean, I can relate 100%. Like I would say it's almost like a copy of what you've gone through in both, experiences. And I think that's what makes us so valuable in this space of coaching, because like you'll often hear like, unless you're a registered dietitian, you shouldn't be, like talking nutrition, right? Because we don't have like years and years. But I'll tell you this right now. And nothing against a registered dietitian, but in most cases, they're not coaching. They're helping you with disease or those things. They're not there to help you change your mindset around your food, or, unless you are a specific registered dietitian, that's, like their specialization is binge eating or whatever. But again, they're there to help you learn how to eat more. They're not the psychologist or anything like that that's involved. Right. Whereas we're bringing some of that in. So like the health and mindset certification, and we've got some functional nutrition, and we've got, like precision nutrition, like actual nutrition basics. Like that's what we need. We don't need to be running around with a PhD in order to help you guys get 1% better every day. Because what, especially from my standpoint and yours, because I see it in your style of coaching, is that we just want to help you figure out what's holding you back, right? And help you reach your goal, but also teach you and educate you along the way. So like when Karen says, someone comes to her and says, well, I want to do keto, that's cool. But let's talk about that, because what does keto do? What is the benefits? What are, and all these things, but also like asking the client, do you understand what it means to go keto? Or are you doing this from an external motivator of like your best friend did this? That's the shit, right?
Right.
So that all being said, I love those takeaways. So
and I think I'll also just add to that.
Sure.
Again, I've had like, yes, we bring in the nutrition basics, we bring in sort of the psychology and the mindset. At the same time, we know when we're not in our lane anymore, right?
100%, yeah.
Like I've had clients come to work with me, and I've worked on the nutrition basics and the mindset and the psychology stuff, but I've gotten to a point where I'll be like, okay, I need to refer you to a psychologist, right? Yeah. There's some stuff here that you need to dig into that is beyond my scope. So it's not as though we think about ourselves as the be all end all, right? We are willing to and do refer out when we need to, for sure.
100%, because there's a certain point, because I mean, I've had people reach out even with that have, they haven't been diagnosed yet because they just maybe feel there's too much shame. Yeah. But like they are full-blown binge eating, and this needs to be diagnosed. But at least I've got the, like for myself, I have the baseline course in order to get that, red flag, like let's talk about it, and give that, recommendation of like, I think you really need to talk to a specialist in this area of disordered eating to be then, diagnosed with an eating disorder. There's that. And then of course, for sure, like when Karen said, like, PM2 is kind of like that life coaching, it's like client-centered shit, right? But it really is like, sometimes I do feel like a therapist. I feel like I'm a life coach, but it's because your nutrition, like where you are right now, like your metabolic identity, like I'll steal that from Sam, is basically you're built about, from all the choices and all the things that you've done throughout your life. And those choices have all been impacted, or at least, have been influenced by something going on in your life, whether it's, like grief or trauma of some sort, but celebration or, like anything, right? A competition, like all of these things drive our choices. And as coaches, it's very valuable to understand what that leads to, right? And so like,
Right.
that's where we're at. But we also know, like, yeah, for sure, Karen, like what you said, we know when to just be like, nope, this is way out of my scope. We need
Yeah,
help, but we can work with those experts as well,
exactly.
those
Yeah.
professionals.
It's not as though we end our coaching experience with that person. We can work with the therapist to provide,
100%.
support. Yeah.
I think it's one of the best partnerships you can have is having those, and we do, we do that for our clients.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about the clients. What do you see to be your biggest struggle right now with clients? Like, what are they facing?
So I think I've touched on this a little bit, and we were just sort of, is a sort of a good segue of what we were talking about, that um, I think that people think that the magic in changing their body composition, whether that's muscle gain or fat loss or whatever, is solely about what they eat and how much they eat, right? When the magic is actually digging deeper than that. And that can be a really tough thing once, I start working with clients to sort of ease them into that. Okay, we're going to have to go deeper than just what your food log on MyFitnessPal says, right? But again, understanding your why behind it. Why do you eat what you eat? Why do you eat when you eat? What are the circumstances under which you eat? Are you having FOMO? Is this based on, like you said, your life experiences? Is this based on beliefs that have been passed down to you from your family? And sort of thinking about, what are your values, right? If you can create a set of values for your life, not just the food that's on your plate, but for your life, then it makes it easier to fall back on saying, okay, well, this isn't in alignment with the values of who I want to become, right? These are my current values, and looking at them and picking, okay, I like this one, and this one, but this one, not so much. I want to change this one. And that's what's going to enables you to take a step forward to make the changes that you want to make. Again, whether that's fat loss or, increasing muscle mass, or, just living in a generally healthier, sort of a lifestyle. But the other thing too, which can be really difficult, is looking at what things in their life are holding them back, like what circumstances, but also who might be holding them back. Right.
Those are hard.
It's a harder, again, I think people think, oh, I'll start working with a nutrition coach. They're going to, look at my food logs and say, oh yeah, stop eating this and start eating that, and eat more of this and increase your protein. And yeah, you need more calories or you need less calories, and that'll be all it's about. But it's not all that it's about. Like, you have to dig deeper.
You do. And Karen, how often do you hear this? Because I get this a lot. Like, well, my husband makes this and my husband chooses, he brings home, like, that's your environment, right? Or my bestie calls me, we go for wine, or she comes over and, or my friends are, how do you say no? Or even just navigating like a Christmas dinner or anything like that. Like, your environment plays a huge role. And those people, we become like the 5 people we hang around with most.
Yeah.
So they say, right? But if you're influenced by people who choose for themselves, then that's part of the problem. And you have to be, aware of that. And so like, that's part of the, the whole, like, overcoming these struggles is like, it's not just, well, here's a meal plan or here's your macros. It's, like, maybe you need to have a conversation with your husband and, talk about your goals and where you're at and how you're feeling, like what your relationship is, like how you perceive all that. Like, that's so important, right? And that's the, quote unquote, woo-woo stuff, the stuff that requires a lot more work than just purchasing your, I don't know, your fucking macros or whatever it is, right? Like, it's so much more than that. I really like that. Digging deep into the beliefs and values. I love that part that you mentioned. So would you say, like, it's just kind of like taking a zoom out of like identifying yourself? So like, who are you and who you want to become?
Yeah.
So is that a place to start?
Yeah. So like, I will sometimes even get my clients to say, okay, these are my current values. These are the things that I'm currently operating off of today. This is where I want to go. So what of these values are not in alignment of the person I want to be, right? Even looking at our language around things like, in order to become that person I want to be, I need to go to the gym every day. Okay, well, what about changing that to I want to go to the gym every day?
Yeah,
Or
narrative,
instead of
yeah.
I have to go to the gym every day, I want to go to the gym every day, or I get to go to the gym every day, right? It's a value for me. It's a non-negotiable, you know, like over the course of the pandemic, even now, one of my kids lives with me, and I think her tolerance level, we have different tolerance levels around the whole pandemic and the rules and the restrictions and that kind of thing. And I actually think I haven't talked to her about it because it's a non-negotiable for me. I think she would prefer that I didn't actually go to the gym 5 days a week. I think she would prefer that I did some home workouts, right? But the thing is that that's a value for me. And I know for me, that's part of keeping me physically and mentally healthy, right?
Yeah.
So these are my values. I also don't drink alcohol. That's just one of my values. I'm not saying that everybody should give up alcohol, but for me, it doesn't serve a purpose for me, right?
Right. And if you think about it, Karen, so when you kind of like giving those examples, would you not say then that's why you are successful? Because your
100%.
goals and how you like your intents and your actions, behaviors, they align with your values, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't
Yeah.
hang out with, like, I hang out the people that I hang out with are people that go to the gym on a regular basis, are people that don't go out and get shit faced every weekend, are people who, when we travel, it's not weird for me to bring along a bunch of my food, right? And
Because they
want to
get
try
you.
and get it. Yeah, they get me. And when I travel with them, we do active things. Like those are values for me. And so
Yeah.
I set those, I can always go back to, even if I'm in a situation where I feel like something's not just kind of sitting right, I can back up and go, oh, right, like this is not in alignment with this value. That's why it feels weird for me right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. When we look at things like who we want to become, I think one of the things that has like for like I like to say like yeah who you want to become, but it's also in my mind it is my true identity. So if
Yeah.
I identify as somebody who's an exerciser or someone who values my nutrition, so like that's my identity, then it makes it easier to navigate that versus someone who's like, well, I really like to drink, like I have to have my drinks with my girlfriend. Then you know what, that's going to happen because that seems to be up on the higher higher up on the totem pole than it would be, someone who is saying, well, I really value my nutrition. So I love what you're saying, because that's what kind of lines you up with being success and overcoming some of these obstacles that you would, as a client might assume that I just need macros from Karen or, Coach
Yeah.
Peeve. That's not really what it's about, right?
Yeah.
Although we will one day.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting close to the time here, but I still want to talk. I have a couple of things because it's important. So what is your biggest pet peeve in this industry? Like, I know there's going to be more than one, but
Yeah, how to narrow it down.
Mind?
So, okay, like your tagline is figure your shit out.
Yeah.
I think mine would be keep it super simple, or like back to basics. Like I do not get all of the complex fad diets out there. Like it doesn't need to be so complicated. Like we can just stick with the basics and get to where we want to go. That's the sustainable stuff, right? The other complicated things just make things so unsustainable. Drives me crazy. Like let's just stick to the basics. But I think the thing that's getting me right now is the whole thing around diet culture. And I've been accused by people that the work I do promotes diet culture without them actually knowing the details of the work that I do, right? They'll say,
Yeah.
well, you talk about fat loss on your Instagram, therefore you're promoting diet culture, which is so far from the truth. Like there are coaches out there who will help their clients lose weight at all costs in all sorts of unhealthy ways, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that is part of diet culture. And diet culture isn't just about promoting fat loss. There are a whole bunch of things. I actually have a post in my Instagram if people want to go there about like, what is diet culture? Let's define this. It's not just about promoting fat loss. But the reality is there are people out there who want to lose fat for a variety of reasons. It could be because they have high blood pressure. It could be because they've developed type 2 diabetes. It could be like me, where they just love to see a certain aesthetic about their body. And you can do that from a healthy spot. You don't have to do it from a spot of, I hate myself, right? And so I see my job as supporting my clients in the things that they want to achieve, but making sure that they're not doing it from a space of, I hate myself. They're doing it from a space of, I want to be, physically healthier. My doctor told me that I have some liver enzymes that are out of whack, or I'm pre-diabetic, or, I have high blood pressure, or, high cholesterol, or stuff like that. Or I want to be able to see what my body's capable of in the gym. Like, I want to be able to lift heavy weights and go fast and, do all of these things. What kinds of stuff can I do to support that stuff? Not because I hate myself or because I don't like the way I look or whatever. I'm doing it because I love myself and I want to see what I'm capable of. Right.
The assumption out there that because you want to lose or change your body composition is that you hate yourself. And I dislike that very much.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay to love your body and have body positivity, but would you not agree that, well, let me see if I can explain this. So on one hand, you got somebody who says you have to love your body the way it looks. So this is a person who might be 20 pounds overweight, or feel like, yeah, they're not lean individuals, which there's nothing wrong with. Okay.
Right.
But then on the other hand, you have someone who's like aspiring to be leaner. Why is it okay for that person to, why do you have to accept that? But it's so wrong to want to be different and leaner.
Yeah.
Yet that, like, do you see that? Like, it's hard for me to explain, but I just don't see why it's so wrong in so many people's minds, because, I think because they're so stuck in what diet culture has done that they don't realize that there are better methods and sustainable approaches to this, that there are benefits to losing body fat for some people. And I'm sorry, for some people, that does mean if I lose 20 pounds, I will be a happier human.
Yeah.
It's not to say that seeing my six pack is going to make me happier. It's the transition. So it's from point A to point B. So maybe they're no longer binging. That is why they're a leaner individual. They're not using food as a coping mechanism. That is part of becoming a leaner individual for most of my clients.
Yeah.
They've been trying all the shit, the fad diets and stuff like that. They've never realized that, oh my God, I use food as a coping mechanism. How do I stop that?
Yeah.
And by default, they become leaner and they feel more confident and they're happier. And that is okay. I don't think that they need to accept themselves as they are and be okay with the fact that they're in their pantry binging.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not okay either, right?
No. And it could be even something as simple as, like, this person is 20 pounds overweight. They travel a lot and they feel like they're, squeezing themselves into a tiny airplane seat, right? They lose the weight and it makes the whole vacation different for them. They have a happier vacation because of it. Like, what is wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. And that's why I'm just like, I feel like there's such a, I don't know, it can be really, really like we're in the middle and we kind of agree, but then we're so polar opposites that's what's, I think, making it so hard. Because I've had clients come to me and say, I'd like to diet, but everybody I know around me who diets says I shouldn't be dieting, that it's so bad for me.
Yeah.
But yet I don't feel comfortable in my skin. I would really like to make some changes. I don't accept who I am right now. They feel wrong in wanting to lose body fat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, you can if you want. No one's stopping you. But let's do it the right way. Like, let's help you, be okay with your relationship with food. Like, let's not restrict carbohydrates because that's what you've done before. Right. Let's try a different method.
And so it's not okay for us to shame people who are overweight, but it's okay for us to shame people who want to lose body fat.
I know it does.
Like, that's so contradictory.
Yeah, I know. I hate that. That would be a pet peeve. And I'm glad you brought that up because, like, I'm not anti-diet. This platform is not at all, just to be clear. Like, I will, and so will Karen, help you achieve your body composition goals the best way we know how and the safest way, right? Yeah. But on the other side of things, if you don't want to lose body fat, but you want to learn how to eat better and just feel better, move your body better or whatever, we also support that. You can be healthy at whatever size you are, depending on your version of health and what that looks like for you. Because again, it does come back to the individual.
Yeah.
it's not society. And I just, it's hard because I see these messages too from these, love your body. And, I'm just like, yeah, do that.
Yeah.
But it's at the same time, I'm like, you can also love your body and be smaller and be healthy and not be like so restrictive. Like, it's just,
Right.
I wish they'd give us a chance some days, Karen, because that's
Totally.
what it is, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Do you have anything else to add to that pet peeve?
No, I'm
Okay,
good.
so I have one more question for you.
Yes.
What is the one thing you could leave with your listeners today? And this is the best part about it, to move themselves just 1% ahead. Like, we're not talking like moving fucking mountains. We're talking like 1% better tomorrow.
Well, I say, don't worry about moving the fucking mountain. Just like take a step towards the mountain, right? Like, you don't have to do everything all at once, right? But also understand that if you want to see change, something's got to change, right? And that may not be limited to the food that you eat. It might extend to the people that you surround yourself with. It might extend to the podcasts you listen to, the way you speak to yourself in your head, the type and amount of exercise you do. Like, you might be actually doing too much exercise, and you might need to rein it in a little bit in order to see the change that you're looking for, right? You might be burning yourself out. It might be changing the reasons and excuses that you default to when you're trying to get something done. Like, there are a whole bunch of things that might need to change other than just what you're eating and how much you're eating and when you're eating, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that just to kind of, overlap what Karen is saying is, like, when you zoom out and you see everything in your life and it feels so fucking hard to even, like, that's overwhelming in itself. Like, I don't know about you, Karen, but I've heard clients were like, there was, their feedback, and I'm like, holy shit, man, I don't even know where to start. Like, I need to write some notes and I need to help, because it's not, even though they're like, I just wish I could, hit my nutrition, or I need to get more water in, I can see that it's not the water.
Yeah.
Right. So like the 1%, without being so obvious and telling them what to do, would be like, let's zoom out. Like, where do you feel like, really, where are you struggling the most?
Yeah.
Like, is it your job? Like, are you like to the point where every day you hate going to work?
Yeah.
And when you hate going to work, it results in how you feel in the afternoon. And now, like, not only you're not eating all day and you're miserable, but now you're like freaking, I don't know, you've just polished off the bag of chips and you didn't even realize it. Like, is that part of, like, what's going on there? Is that the one thing we need to change? Is like that stressor? Do we need to identify those and move slowly towards eliminating or replacing? Like, it doesn't always have to be, like you said, moving all the shit.
Yes.
Maybe there's small little boulders that we can move towards that mountain.
Yes.
We don't have to do it all.
Yeah. And it could be, like you say, it could be job stressors. It could be that, you have postpartum depression and you haven't been diagnosed with it. So let's get you to the doctor. Let's see what, the doctor can help you with. Let's get you in to see a therapist. Like, let's look at some of these other things that might be around what you're putting on your plate. Right.
But you got to change. And that is I think that's the biggest thing that I would agree with you 100%, is like, you can't continuously do what you're doing, because it's just going to result in the same thing over and over again. Right. And so creating that awareness, like taking that zoom out, is where we can start to identify that. Right. Mm-hmm. And, like you said, it's just one thing, right? It doesn't have to be a whole bunch. And my thing that I would add there, if there's one thing that could help you improve, is like, while you're making this choice, have the fucking patience to go with it. Because as much as you really want to see this like fat loss, and you keep focusing on that, the harder it's going to be if you don't like take that step back and start, working on the steps.
Yes, exactly. Have patience, take the time, trust the process.
Yeah. All right, girl, this has been fun. I'm super, like, I am so happy to have you on board as my assistant coach, and I'm excited. So, I'll tell you, you can obviously leave, all the information where people can find you. But I just want to say, to let everybody know that Karen is an amazing coach. I have all the faith in the world. I don't like, I don't need to oversee anything. Like, she is great at what she does. And I want to thank you for that, because, it's hard to find, like, I remember when I was on this journey of what do I do to, scale my business and to help more people? Because that's what it was about, right?
Yeah.
And I was really scared to take this step because I just assumed that it had to be another me, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there's only one coach B, let's be honest
Right.
here.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I wanted to find someone that I really could have confidence in. Like,
Yes.
I was telling my daughters the other day, like, when we talk about ourselves and like, do you really believe? When I talk to people, I'm like, I say, like, I'm confident as fuck. Like,
Yeah.
I know I can help you.
Yeah.
You just have to believe in my ability, but you also have to believe in your own. But I believe in myself that much, so I don't question it. And that's how I feel about you, Karen.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I feel like any client that comes to Motivate Be Fit is they're going to be in great hands with Karen. I know that she will be able to help you achieve your goals. And the thing is that here's the bonus. Not only do you have Karen's eyes on there, but if she's ever struggling, she would be asking me, and vice versa. There's shit that Karen does in performance that I've never dealt with.
Yeah.
So this is great. And this is why I'm so excited for our team moving forward. So last thing, where can we find you?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm super thrilled to be a part of the team too. And it was really sort of serendipitous that when I reached out to you after the gym closed and I was like, hey, do you know anybody who's looking for nutrition coaches? And you were like, oh my gosh, I was going to reach out to you, but I didn't know if it was too soon, all of that. So it worked out, like the timing was perfect. And I love that we are in alignment with the way that we think and our style of coaching and, our values around coaching. But I also love the autonomy that I have. So like I just post my shit on Instagram. Like, I don't go, okay, this is my post, I'm posting this today. Are you okay with this, Brandy? Because I just know we think alike, right? We're in alignment. So and then I'm loving creating the blog posts and stuff like that. So you can find me through the Motivate and Be Fit website. There's some blog posts up there. I try and get something up once every 3 to 4 weeks ish. And then I'm on Instagram at Karen_Motivate and Be Fit. And then also my personal Facebook page. Anything that I post on my Instagram goes over to my personal Facebook page, which is Karen McTavish Condor, and it's McTavish for McTavish, and Condor with a K. Awesome. So you can find me in all of those places. And I still have a few coaching spots open. So I'd love to bring some more people on board and share all of the knowledge and experience that I have. It's a passion for sure.
Great. We'll make sure that stuff is all in the show notes. Well, I just want to thank you one more time. I appreciate your time. So in the future, Karen, this isn't the only time Karen will be on here. I anticipate I'd like to do like a coach's corner with, yourself and then other coaches in the business where there's this alignment, but also a little bit of diversity. Like, I think it's important to not only talk about what we do, but I think that there's an alliance here with a lot of coaches that we met through HMCC, but also just in general. And I want to be able to interview those coaches and have their thoughts and just have a real conversation about the health and wellness industry, but also the myths and all that kind of shit, like anything that evolves around mind, body, fitness, and real life shit, right? Like the stuff that matters. And because we both, as moms, we understand, but, at the end of the day, like that doesn't mean that, we've gone through it, but at the end of the day, that doesn't qualify us to be the experts. But I do think that we can definitely share some strategies and some stories and stuff like that. And I know other coaches can do that as well. So I'm super excited for the future of this podcast and having you as part of that team. So thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right. That's it. See you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.